which I don't, I don't really care. A lot of people are pretty nervous about AI, but I personally,
It's like anything else. It's which thought system do we use it with?
well, exactly.
I
And
mean, it's whether it's motorcycle repair or geometry or um, cake decorating, or anything else you might be involved in. Um, it's, am I using it with the Holy Spirit or with the ego? That's the only real important question to ask ourselves in
exactly,
any moment, right?
absolutely, it's the only real question.
Yeah.
All the rest of it are statements. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
really.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, good morning, everybody. You're here with Bruce Rawles and Lynn Johnson, and we are reading Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and the Scribing of A Course in Miracles by Dr. Kenneth Wapnick. Um, and let's see, I'm not
So it looks
sure.
like if we read it straight through from your screen that you're sharing, we've got about three more sessions to finish the book, but I think we might take longer than that given our track record. It shows
Yeah,
us at 87%, and I have us on page 447, middle of the page, starting a new section. Defenses against Jesus and against love, special hate, in parentheses, judgment, and special love. And this, of course, is Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD, which we've been reading for pretty close to a couple of years now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Gary Renard's coming out with a new book.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I've almost finished listening to, I think, most of what Ken Wapnick has done in terms of audios, and I've read quite a few of his books, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm due for a new book. So it'll be it's always fun to see what Gary puts in there because he has, things that are sort of asides, but they really are, all almost all oriented toward helping us appreciate and integrate the course. So
Yeah, and,
yeah,
and they're interesting because they're like holographic time traveling books.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it really, when you read them, you really get this essence. And I wonder if maybe people who haven't read his books uh, have like a really uh, structured sense of how the universe works or how time works or whatever. But after you've been reading Gary, and especially like the lifetimes when Jesus and Buddha knew each other, and you
Mhm.
realize that this time thing is not static. It,
It's not linear, and ultimately we learn that it's not real, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that is one of the major issues that people have with the teachings of Course in Miracles is, well, and Jesus says it himself, it's the belief in time. It's the belief that there are segments, that oneness can be segmented, and that there can be uh, separate times when things are happening. And the reality of it is, it all happened at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. The entirety of the ego's thought system of sin, guilt, and fear, which it tries to foist onto its victims as past, present, and future, exist in one tiny mad idea that never happened, which is pretty
Yeah,
staggering. Yeah.
it is pretty staggering. But if you could just absorb that,
Hmm.
then it's a lot. The whole course is much easier then. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
everything is easier then.
Well, Ken in so many places reminds us that we don't really understand time, and and the course is you know replete with lots of examples of how it basically says, well, here's a little hint that eternity is our real nature and time is part of our hallucination, but we can hear these and they sound like pretty words, and we appreciate the sentiment, but we don't really grok them. We don't really understand them at this point, which is okay. But we need that little light at the end of the tunnel now and then to remind us, where we're headed is beyond our current level of understanding or comprehension. Certainly, uh, the realm of knowledge that the course refers to is really, um, it's beyond our current capacity, but that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, because I can accept that. I can accept that and know that I just don't know,
Hmm.
which is what a gift that is.
Oh,
And
yeah.
not only do I just don't know, I don't need to know. I'm on I am absolutely on a I don't need to know basis
I like that.
because
That sounds like a very non-militaristic stance.
exactly.
I like it.
I
That's
mean,
good. I might quote you on that. That's a
okay.
good phrase. Yeah. The I don't need to know basis. That's good.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, well, because
Well,
you
because this little self that we think we are can't know. So accepting that and being a happy to be wrong and happy to be in the I don't need to know camp is really a wonderful thing. Is that's taking a burden off our shoulders. Kind of like in that section 10 in the manual where it says, in order to understand anything, you'd have to understand the whole script of past time and everything to come for everyone, and in what would be most beneficial for everyone in every way. And who except in their grandiose fantasies, I think it says something like that, that would assume that for themselves. Like, well, no, none of us know that. I mean, that'd be nuts to try to figure, even on this level, which of
yeah,
course is a made up level.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so we're basically clueless, and that's why we need implicit trust in Holy Spirit. And as we work toward that, we become more and more peaceful because we realize, oh, I don't have to agonize over every little detail and every little thing that's on well, let's see, was it 7 hard drives that are sitting on my desk that I'm realizing I really should see if there's anything useful on them. But if I miss vast chunks of things that I've stored, it won't matter because I haven't looked at them in 2 years anyway, if not more.
exactly. It's like those boxes in your garage that you never unpacked after you moved.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be up my game a little bit and take take these out of my closet and find a good home for them before moving this time and things like that. So, but
Exactly.
every move we've lightened our load a little bit. So,
Oh,
um,
well, hey, that's a good metaphor too.
yeah, and then of course we've got more stuff, but that's
Well,
that's
yeah,
that's how it works.
gotta have the stuff.
Yeah, got to have
Bob,
Arizona stuff, and then none of this. Now we'll have to rethink the Oregon stuff that we gave away.
oh yeah, because now you got to get more organ stuff now. Bob has his hand up.
Hey,
Bob, go
everyone
ahead.
should watch that George Carlin skit on stuff every so often, especially, but even contemplating a move. That's the best time to do it, I think.
Exactly,
I,
exactly.
And
Uh,
I
Robert's got
get
his
it.
hand up.
yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead, Bob.
I get a kick out of something with this moving. Um, Someone once said every time we move, we leave half of our stuff behind. And I'm trying to think. Well, I was trying to think about how many times would I have to move until I had nothing.
Yeah,
Well, that's impossible because half of half of half of half, it gets smaller and smaller, but we still hold on to something.
right.
Let's hope to God that what we hold on to as we move is the one thing, the capital O.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. The Zeno's paradox says as long as you keep trying to divide nothing in a dream, you still have something because you still believe that something is valuable.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And
but that's great point, Robert. Thanks.
how
Yeah.
many times can you fold a piece of paper? Well,
Right, right.
uh,
Well, if it's infinitesimally
it's
thin, you probably could do it even more, right?
even more.
Yeah. Should we pick up
Okay.
where we left off?
Yeah. Do you want to read or you want me to read?
I can jump in, sure.
Okay.
I have us in the middle of page 447, this new section, which is defenses against Jesus and against love. Special hate, in parentheses, judgment, and special love. And Ken begins with trapped in a morass of contradictory feelings from which she, Helen, could never consciously be free. Helen believed in her earlier years at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center that she had finally succeeded in pushing this quote intruder unquote Jesus from her life. Yeah, good luck with that, since that's our real identity, right? And then suddenly, with the beginning of A Course in Miracles, triggered by her joining with Bill to find, quote, another way, unquote, of relating, there was Jesus again. Quote, I was a stranger and you took me in, not knowing who I was. And that's in the text, chapter 20, section 1, paragraph 4, sentence 3, or page 396 in the probably the second edition, or I don't know. In my book, it's just page 396, second or third edition. Okay, this line, incidentally, was one of the few in the course that never failed to bring tears to Helen's eyes. Yeah, I mean, because we feel like we've done this horrible thing of abandoning our creator and each other, and the guilt over that is just so unfathomably deep, but it's mostly unconscious. So every time we have a moment of, usually the emotions are like the reflection of the awareness that nothing happened, and that can be a clue that it doesn't always elicit an emotional response, but a lot of times when tears come to one's eyes, when especially when it's an inspirational feeling or emotion, that oftentimes is a clue that we're exhuming and um, vaporizing some of just another little bit of that unconscious guilt. Huh?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's every day, every day, every day, every day until we're not here.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as we're here in a body, there's something to forgive.
Or probably putting in more accurate course terms, as long as we're here identified with the ego,
Yes,
regardless of whether or not we're in a body.
exactly,
Since
exactly.
the bodies, from the course's perspective, and in so many ways it emphasizes this, have nothing to do with our choice of teacher or the position of our decision maker. And and it's one of those things where birth and death are non-events in reality. If the space-time continuum is a dream, then how could anything that happens to either come or go in a dream, to appear or disappear in a hallucination, have any significance on what's eternally true for all of us, as all of us that are one?
Yeah, and absolutely it cannot. It's not even like a wisp, like smoke. I mean, nothing. It just can't touch you at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that ties beautifully into a phrase I when I first started reading the course, kind of the happy inevitability of the comfort that's inside, our inner comfort that will be complete and consistent and unchanging when we have accepted the atonement, as the course would say, or completely forgiven ourselves for the impossible crime of separation. And even though if we don't really know what that means exactly, every time we realize that we're not apart from each other and use the reflections of the people in our world and the circumstances and events and situations that seem to push our buttons as classroom exercises for letting go of our grievances and our dogged determination to stay separate, that releases an enormous amount of aha-ness, if that's a word. Uh, I'll just make one of it. Gotta reinvent the vocabulary now and then, right?
Oh, what is the word you said?
Aha-ness.
Honest. I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Honest.
good. Well, now we've both helped each other with the
I
phrase we
love
can
it.
use. Now I just
But
got to remember which one you said. Oh, I know. What was it? What did you say a few moments ago that I really liked? Brain fade. Another thing we can forgive ourselves for.
let's forget about the past and find something new.
Okay,
So,
sounds good. Okay, do you want to read
but
the next paragraph?
sure. And that's the thing that is just so silly about this whole thing is that we are doing it ourselves and pretending like someone else is doing it to us. And all we have to do is just recognize that nothing is happening.
Hmm.
Even though it appears that things are going crazy, nothing is happening. And it's hilarious now. But I look at the news and I just have to laugh. And sounds terrible that I would be laughing at the news, but I look at it and
Well,
I
that's the course suggests that actually in some sense. Not, and if you take it out of context, it would be horrific. But
right,
yeah, yeah.
but looking at it and thinking, how in the hell would it be possible for this to be actually true.
Right, right.
How could it be possible that
Yeah,
this could be happening?
yeah,
And when you recognize that uh, either God is or this insanity is true,
right.
and you can't have both.
Yep, yep.
So yeah, so which God, and the thing that brings me out of it, the thing that really brings me out of it is my decision not to judge.
That's it.
My
That's it.
decision not to look at it and say this is wrong, this is what, no evaluation, just saying it is what it is. So what? I
Mhm.
have no opinion on it because it's a dream.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have no opinion on any of this other than it's silly. It's silly, silly, silly. And now when I look at the news with all the stuff that's going on politically in America, I'm just rolling in laughter because it is like you couldn't write a crazier story.
Oh
It,
no. Truth
no,
is stranger than fiction, as they say, and it's also more absurd. Well, I should say fiction is more absurd than truth.
yeah,
But we don't see that absurdity until we get above the battleground. And only from above the battleground does the gentle, non-derisive, non-condemning laughter and the smile, you know, the inward smile, occur to us that there's no way this could be the real world, and
that's right.
elsewhere in the text it says, if this were the real world, God would be cruel. And I
Yes,
think that's such a great reminder. Is it's like, well, if that's the case, then I can afford to not make fun of or uh, you know derisively, mean-spiritedly, uh, attack, because the idea of attack is really part of the craziness. And if I remove myself from the teacher of attack and identify with the teacher of kindness and forgiveness instead, then any form of attack just becomes a silly, forgivable misunderstanding on my part. And it just means I'm looking, if I'm tempted to want to respond with any kind of a backlash, on the level of form or in my mind, it's basically I'm saying I'm now part of the problem again. Yeah.
yeah. And the real question you have to ask yourself is, where am I doing this?
Hmm.
I'm going to look at this and judge it. Well, stop a minute.
Right.
Where am I doing this?
Yeah.
And because I wouldn't be seeing it if I weren't doing it.
Yep.
All things are lessons God would have me learn. Whatever this is, it's here for my learning. And the best thing I can do is say, where am I doing this? And when I recognize where I'm doing it, then I can forgive it. It becomes really clear that this is not what I really think. These are not my real thoughts. This is not these are uh, just ideas and thoughts in my mind that have no real meaning. When I start recognizing that, then I can let it go. But when I think it's, oh, this is so important, I know what has to happen. I know the future. That's the problem, is that we think that there's a future that we have to somehow or the other affect through doing or not doing certain things,
Hmm.
because right now there's nothing I can do. But you know what? There's nothing I can do in the future either. All I can do is decide who I want to see it with. So
Hmm.
yeah, crazy. Oh my goodness. Just thinking of Crazy Train and Ozzy Osbourne. All right.
Muy loco motives.
That's right. So, the process of scribing A Course in Miracles, not to mention the teachings themselves, was the undeniable proof that Helen's defenses against Jesus and his love would ultimately fail. And yet she steadfastly held on to them. One of her ego's primary defenses was judgment. Oh, here we go. Uh, and in parentheses, he says, an expression of what the Course refers to as special hate. Into Prince. And I have rarely been in the presence of someone with the degree of criticalness possessed by Helen. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's the reason that Helen lived in fear for the rest of her life and had all this trouble was because of this critical decision making, judgmental thinking. I see it in myself and I recognize uh, I do the same thing.
Mhm.
Uh,
As you're saying that, Lynn, it occurs to me that, not to make Helen special in any way whatsoever, but thinking about, Ken's comment there about how, rarely been in the presence of someone with a degree of criticalness possessed by Helen. I was thinking, well, if she was able to be identified with the ego with crystal clarity and steadfastness and discern and convey what the ego is telling her, um, wouldn't it make sense that she would also, when she flipped the switch over to the Holy Spirit, be able to share what the Holy Spirit was saying with equal critical,
yeah,
well, not with critical, with equal clarity and the crystal clarity of her writing is when she was aligned with Holy Spirit's inspiration was staggeringly brilliant, and that's why I think we're all drawn to the course because she when she got into her ego, as Ken points out, we're all doing the same thing. We're all 100% ego when we're identified with the ego, and we're all 100% Holy Spirit. But her ability to express, her literary background, her psychology background, and all the things that we've talked about several times about, Freud and Plato and Shakespeare and the style of the Bible, all those things, played into it. But what an incredible ability that came through her, not from her, um, but that understanding that we all truly do have that was conveyed in a way that we could all relate to it. And again, it's not the form, but it's the content that we relate to, which is another one of Ken's audios I was listening to. Who can be unkind, or who can be unwelcome to the kind in heart? I don't think I'd actually listened to that one before. I'm about halfway through. It's brilliant. He's talking about how we just need to live this. We don't need to be able to quote line and verse, although a few I've got memorized, but the idea is if I can live it, that's the real teaching. If I'm just intellectually familiar with all the concepts, well, yeah, that's all well and good, but it doesn't really get you anywhere.
that's
You know,
right.
the car hasn't left the garage, and we want to travel. We want to we want
Uh,
to get home.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Our garage in hell that we think is our home is,
exactly.
hasn't we haven't lifted the garage door until we hit the remote button.
Well, don't sit in the garage with the car running and with the door shut. So
You're right.
that's my
That's yeah,
sage advice to you.
good advice too.
I'm getting this that I think what it appears to me because I recognize it in myself is this experience or fear of being lost in it, of losing herself.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what that she couldn't just let it go because she was so afraid of losing herself.
right.
And
Uh,
that's it.
Unlike all of us, right?
Right,
Ha
yeah,
ha
yeah,
ha.
absolutely. Yeah, no, no, me, no, I'm all for it. Let's. Oh my God.
And I
So,
think that's another point that Ken brings up frequently is, when people say, "Oh, I love this course," you know, the important thing to acknowledge is, well, yeah, there's a part of us that despises it and detests it, just as Helen did,
oh yeah,
because she knew what it said, and we know what it says.
right.
And no ego is going to take that lying down. It's like them's fight. Everything in the course is fighting words to the ego, and everything in what we're reading in the autobiography of Helen or the biography of Helen is they're all challenges to something we've held dear for decades, if not many, many millennia.
Millennium.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Since the very beginning, really. That's the first
Mhm.
thing we figured out was I need to run away.
The beginning of the dream.
The beginning of the dreams right here.
Mhm.
So okay. So so he says, all right, one of her ego's primary defenses, I'm just rereading this, was judgment. And I've rarely been in the presence of someone with the degree of criticalness possessed by Helen. Her fear, the actual defense against love, was supported by a heightened perception of the external world that saw practically everything and everyone as a threat, in parens, then thereby justifying her fear. This was the basis of all her judgments, whether in the form of a subtle change in temperature, which made her physically uncomfortable, or much more to the point, her judgments of others that necessitated her, quote, self-protection, unquote, of anger and criticism. This successfully kept the perceived threat at a distance, and obviously people remained separate from her. So, this is, I, I know I do this, and I know someone who's very close to me that it does not matter what thing you give, what thing you say, what thing, oh, look, isn't that nice? Oh, it's just not that good. Wasn't that delicious? It was okay. Uh, I love listening to Josh Groban sing. He cannot sing. He has not, I mean, that's the kind of reactions that I get whenever I say something that I really appreciate or really love. This other person is like constantly, it doesn't matter what it is going to say that it's not good or not as good. And I see that too. It's that same fear of being wrong, uh, and that desire to be the one in charge. So, how can anybody else be right? So,
And all those attacks are whether even if they're not physical, we may abhor people that are murderers and assassins, but when we do character assassinations willy-nilly without really acknowledging them as such, the Course says, well, there's no degree of difficulty in miracles, which means that there's no order of difficulty in the degree or the amount of hate, anger, polarization, attack, assassination, division. They're all basically the same concept, right?
it's all,
So
yeah, murder.
so I just have to notice how many ways in a given day, more and more frequently when I'm doing a character assassination on parts of myself that really aren't outside me. And if I can remember, that principle that all the things that seem to push my buttons, I'm the master electrician in my mind that wired all those buttons. And I can,
Yeah,
instead of sending the signals, which I don't need to get rid of the buttons, I just need to send the signals that come from those buttons. Instead of to the ego's processing malware, I send it to the Holy Spirit's correction software. And that makes all the difference. Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you speed up the programming so that you set it up so that it automatically runs itself and goes to the right place,
Exactly.
rather than me over here trying to figure things out.
And that's
Which,
what the practice of forgiveness does, right? It
yeah,
just keeps routing it to the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. And if we do
exactly.
that enough, then that becomes the norm rather than the exception. And then we're more peaceful. Amazing.
Yeah.
I think we can, even if we're, relatively new at the Course, we, which I think, even a few decades, I still think of myself as a newbie in a lot of ways. Uh, but I am noticing that my ability to watch my mind without judgment is quicker now, and my ability to look at things that I want to think that are outside me and realize, well, that could be my call for love too. That's quicker. And I think those kind of things, while they're not necessarily mathematically cumulative, there is a momentum that I think that happens, and we find that we're actually more peaceful, and we can say, oh well, I'm probably more peaceful anticipating this move than I was 7 or 8 moves ago.
Yeah, yeah. I, I,
For example, I don't know. It's just it's
uh,
yeah,
but,
anyway.
but also, um, it is like today's lesson, or the lessons that we're doing right now, the review lessons.
Hmm.
If you read the introduction, and
Yeah,
it says, all you have to do is just give up all your judgmental thoughts, basically give up all, stop thinking all the things that you're thinking now. And whenever something comes up, instead of thinking that, use I'm blessed, I uh, like the lesson, use the lesson instead.
Mhm.
It's actually shifting your thinking from that judgmental thought system to what God would have you think, the thoughts that God would have you think. And so, years of practicing that, and of course, years of not practicing it at the same time, uh, I can see the difference between how I feel when I'm thinking with God, or when I'm allowing the Holy Spirit to be in charge, and how I feel when I'm not. And that judgment is unbearable. And that's why when I'm reading Ken
Mhm.
saying that Helen was a highly critical person, and that she got upset about every little thing, like the change of the temperature or whatever. Uh, oh, how unhappy you would be if all you saw was wrong. Everything you saw was wrong.
Right. And I think the course really gives us an opportunity. Um, I know I've said this on more than a few occasions, but when I listened to Ken's commentary and listened to 182 a few years back, and I listened to it over and over again, the one phrase in particular that really stuck with me about his comments is, the purpose of the course isn't to make us miserable; it's to remind us how miserable we've made ourselves by choosing the ego. And that masochism, that misery, is self-inflicted, but we have to be willing to, open our eyes and see, looking objectively with infinite patience and gentleness, which is the only way that you can look with the Holy Spirit, at how miserably we've made ourselves. And the line that comes to mind is, take pity in yourself, so long enslaved. There's that release, and sometimes it can be an emotional experience when you realize, oh my gosh, I've been so hard on myself. I've been so cruel. And a lot of times that reflects, it's obvious when we look at how we treat each other, and we realize, well, I could have been more kind in that interaction, or I could have, contributed something that might have been more helpful. But would have to have gotten myself out of the way. Well, that's the thing. The little less self, that's the silly, seemingly separate self, that's the obstacle to peace.
Yeah, that's just right there.
Yeah.
Not take. I'm looking for where that take pity on yourself is. I don't recall having read that, but
Oh, let me. I'll find it real quick. I've got
I'm
the
just looking at it here. So, because I love
self.
that Jesus. It's in text chapter 22, the introduction, salvation in the holy relationship. Take pity on yourself, so long enslaved.
Yep, that's it. The very first sentence in chapter 22. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rejoice in God have come together, and need no longer look on sin apart.
Yeah.
This is all about salvation in the holy relationship. Wow.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, yeah, I love this book. It is so stunning to me.
Amazing, isn't it? That it
Yes.
just lays bare all the things that are true about ourselves and all the things that we've cherished that are false, and kind of gives us a little gentle, the most kind-hearted ribbing possible, and saying, yeah, you still believe a lot of crazy stuff about yourself, which is
Yeah.
reflected in your attitudes about the world and all those other alleged people in the world.
Yeah. I see that Bob has put a question in the chat.
Yeah,
My wife is suffering these days from a leg injury. Am I creating her pain from my own, quote, view of her situation? Uh,
that's a great question.
that's a great question, and
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and also a great example of, I think, of level confusion.
Hmm.
Uh, because first off, nobody's creating her pain. That's a part of the story that we're all living here. Um, the pain you're experiencing in your own mind is coming from your own view of your
Hmm.
situation,
Right.
and you're imagining a pain. You don't even know how her pain is. You have no idea. she may be telling you this hurts and it's like a stinging, burning, but you don't know it because you're not experiencing it. So the only thing you're experiencing is your own view of her situation,
Interpretation, huh?
interpretation. And the
Yep,
only thing
yep,
that you can do is forgive your own interpretation of it
bingo.
because it's not real. It's not
Yep,
true.
yeah.
It
Very
just,
well said. Very well said. Yeah. And whenever we reinforce someone else's limiting beliefs about themselves, we're basically just doing that to ourselves. And that's a needless suffering. Doesn't mean we don't do the things on the level of form, like, it's like if she needs to go to a neurologist or a specialist or a physical therapist or whatever, help her go to those places, right? But all the while just kind of doing all the normal things. It's like, well, but remember that, her essence is no different from mine or anyone else's, the 8.2 billion or whatever people on the planet. And we're all having a massive hallucinatory dream that we're in separate bodies. And those bodies are, subject to all these limitations and, you know, ad adverse situations and whatnot. And why, what a crazy dream that is. But by being normal, we're basically saying that doesn't matter. If my peace isn't impacted by what someone else is experiencing, then I can experience that too. So that's the reason that example hits close to home is my mom. My mom. Well, my mom had a whole bunch of issues a few years back, and I was helping her. And then more recently, my wife Nancy, she's had some issues. I think that's probably true just about anybody who gets to a certain age. The body starts having issues, and um, when you're in your adolescence and middle age, some of the times those things can be easily ignored or seem negligible. But at some point, that begins to be a predominant factor. And if I can remember that's the script that we all wrote for ourselves, but it's a script of a dream. Do the things they're helpful and normal, and try to not make a big deal out of anything, while at the same time remembering that this isn't our real identity.
yeah.
We're as Richard Bach said, we're talking about MGM Worlds and Warner Brothers lifetimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, I love Richard Bach too.
yeah,
It's really yesterday we were having a discussion and someone was uh, talking about watching television or movies or things like that and wondering if that was a worthwhile thing for a person to practicing A Course in Miracles to be doing, getting in this entertainment and talking about, how you could, eventually came around to, how could you use these things that you're seeing as practicing for forgiveness.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the person was saying, what's, I get watching these things and I get so involved. It's like I'm, part of it. I'm in the movie. And this is exactly what's happening.
Right, right.
We're
We're,
watching a movie and we're so involved in it that we think we're the characters in the movie.
we're watching movies within the movie of our life
Yeah.
that we forgot is a movie. Yeah. Very, very high production value, photorealistic, holographic, 3D movie that for the best, part for the most of our lives, we assume that's reality. And yet, of course, tells us, you know, you haven't sinned, but you've been much mistaken. I mean, we think most of the time that what's happening with bodies in our space-time dreams is reality. And that's why this isn't a more popular course, because not too many people who they think they're people and want to think they're people have any interest in undoing that. But well, they have an evident interest to us anyway. But at some level, everyone wants that, but we can bury it pretty deeply and through a lot of lifetimes, it would seem.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so Bob also says I need okay, let's see. He asked a question. So my ego is holding the importance of having his wife in my illusion as a persistent special relationship question mark.
Mhm.
Um and Then he says, I need to remember that she is a symbol of my need to express love every moment. And
Yes.
that's also, a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
understand
Exactly.
these relationships, even if I call it a special relationship, doesn't, that's almost a damnation in a Course in Miracle student's mind.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point because when the course talks about special relationships, it's easy to think that those are primary, romantic or familial relationships, but but the course really strongly suggests, and I can't think of any counterexamples that our relationship to literally everything and everyone is a special relationship when given to the ego, which is our default until we start turning it around. So and I think that ties into that line in the manual where it's, are changes required in the lives of God teachers? Or, it's like, well, no, changes are required in the minds of God's teachers. And then it says, with rare exceptions, and the reason it's fresh in mind is Ken was talking about it this morning in the audio I was listening to. It says, with rare exceptions, you know, you don't need to change where you live or change who you live with or quit your job or go chant in a monastery and forsake your worldly possessions or it's not about changing the dream, it's changing what we think about the dream, right? Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And in fact, there you can't change the dream. The dream is a set. It happened a long time ago. Uh,
Mhm.
and 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 Jesus also tells us someplace in the course that our ability to miscreate has been like cut off, basically.
Well, I figure we're on a quarantine planet to begin with, and we have a little governor in our dream figure script that keeps us from, you know, being it's self-isolating.
Yeah,
When we believe in the idea of isolation or separation, um, we basically uh, have limited the imaginary damage to just what's in our mind. Now, because it's really one mind that's split. We can think that we can harm or help each other, and yet ultimately it's our own decision, isn't it? I mean, that's one of those staggering ideas that's, I think, part of the perennial philosophy, to some degree, but how could we, how if we're all one thing, how could there be any damage or harm to that perfect oneness? Well, we made up a dream and where that seemed possible,
yeah,
and most of our lives are spent floundering around within that dream, trying to, you know, make this miserable misunderstanding work, and discovering that, in so many ways that it's a hopeless situation. But like in this section 4 in chapter 31, which is one of my favorites, the real alternative, we can try every permutation of dream repair that we want, but sooner or later we realize, well, in order for me to be happy, I need to actually wake up from the dream. And the way the course, keeps pointing to is I need to keep forgiving myself for wanting to be a dream figure, and instead of a happy dreamer that knows he or she is dreaming and can say, "Oh, I sooner or later I'm gonna want to wake up, even if I don't know what that means yet, to be awake."
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because that seems like the ultimate end. I
Mhm.
mean, that's, assumption wise, that's what once you start thinking about this spiritual path, you expect the ultimate end is that you're going to wake up. And of course it is because because it can't go, I mean, seriously, it can't go on forever.
Yeah.
And Jesus again said to us, that this is, it's time now to, start waking up. And oh, Bob says, I just realized I'm trying to fix the
Fix the
dream.
dream. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're all dream repair technicians or recovering dream repair technicians. That's my little favorite phrase is we've got a little hat on that says, I'm here from the Ego Maintenance Central, and I'm trying to desperately to keep this sinking ship afloat, and the bilge pumps keep failing, and I get my up to my ears in ego thoughts, and I can either go over bail overboard or basically just, jump on Holy Spirit's, little rowboat, um, and get off the ego's Titanic dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until we
Spiritual
reach
Geek
the
Squad. That's good.
iceberg.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Yeah.
That's Bruce, spiritual
Yeah.
geek spot for sure.
Actually, I prefer nerd. I learned that geeks, when I looked it up in the dictionary, the example they gave was entertainers who bite the heads off of chickens at carnivals. And I don't do too much of that, but but nerd, I think I can relate to better. So anyway. Although I like a little rotisserie chicken now and then.
Little rotisserie chicken
Yeah,
without the head. Thank you.
yeah. I don't usually eat that though.
Oh man, this is hilarious. We're not doing a lot of reading here. I'm going to read.
No, but we're having fun.
Yeah,
That's the point. Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing is, if you aren't having fun, then you're doing something wrong.
exactly.
This is not here to punish us.
All right, right.
This is here for our entertainment. We asked for something, we wanted to see something or whatever. And here it is. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, and that also brings up another point that I think is, well, I don't hear it talked about too much in the course circles, if you want to call it that, I participate in on a weekly basis, and that is, the idea of fun and boredom as a topic, and I
Ooh.
think the ego has really co-opted the idea of fun and foisted the idea of boredom on the Holy Spirit. Now, if we really think about it, what could be more boring than a never-ending procession or stream or parade of agonizing thoughts and feelings, even though the scenery is changing in all the costumes and the parade are incredibly diverse, but that the parade that ego orchestrates it's all sin, guilt, fear, death, depression, anxiety, loneliness, uncertainty. If you look at behind each of the costumes and the people in the parade, that's every thought that the ego has is based on that gloomy dirge. And that's really no fun. Whereas the real fun, and it's not a fun at anyone's expense, or it's not laughter, it's not derisive laughter. It's a gentle laughter that says, "Wow, I'm dreaming." But the real fun, which is peace beyond any possibility of uncertainty or attack or compromise, is the peace that knows of knowing that we are eternally one with each other and with our creator, even if that's a mostly foreign concept. But that's where the real fun is. And I think when we get together and share like this, and thanks to Bob and Dove and Elizabeth and whoever else is listening this live or later, it's like, well, when we can remember that we're all in it together and we're here to help each other remember that we're just having a really awful dream, and we whitewash it, you know, quite a bit, way more than we realize. But if we can just look at it clearly, just say, well, that's absurd. I could wake up from this. I could see peace instead of this. And I'm not upset for the reason I think. This is just a silly, forgivable nightmare that has lasted gazillion, what I think of as years, right?
Or so we think. I
Or
mean,
so we think. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We don't really understand the
we
whole.
don't know anything, and
We
that's
don't we don't know nothing here.
nothing. We don't know what was here before. And I was thinking,
Not
we're
as
talking,
egos anyway, but the part of our mind that does know is we're beginning to, that, well, gee, that's actually kind of working a little bit. When I actually drop my grievances and question my attack thoughts, um, gosh, amazingly, I'm actually more peaceful. And that is fun. That's actually fun.
yeah, yeah,
And it's not boring
yeah.
to look at what we're doing with our mind and see how powerful our minds really are. That's really a fun thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing that is so fun is when we drop our judgments of our brothers and we look at them and see how beautiful they are.
Exactly.
It-
Exactly. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it just recognizing that these characters that I have condemned through
Hmm.
all these judgments, if I just drop all those judgments and just start coming from what I actually know, which, those are all just imaginary thoughts.
Yep.
But I come with that, what I actually know. They are alive, they are aware, uh, they are human, they are sons of God. Whatever it is that I can say about them that I know for sure, uh, is innocent, complete,
Hmm.
totally innocent.
Exactly. It's that dazzling innocence, isn't it? That illuminates our mind and provides the antidote to the uncertain, lonely, fearful thought system of the ego, which is incredibly boring. I mean, the form changes constantly because that's one of its chief strategies is to make sure, oh, well, here's another distraction or another diversion. Well, it's not any different in truth on the level of form. Sure, there's all kinds of differences. Wow, I got this new technology called AI. Oh, that's going to solve everything. No, it's just like any other era. I mean, you know, however many gazillion years ago, when I think it was cavemen and discovered fire. It's like, well, I got this new technology. It's going to change everything. Well, no, it's just no. Now maybe some of the saber-toothed tigers will stay away for a while and then they'll realize that, the fire is not threatened and they'll be back again. It's silly. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's never about the form. It's always the content that makes a difference. Yeah.
It is absolutely. And so that's when we start focusing on that, the content, um, instead of our imaginary ideas. And that's where, I have to go out of what my imagination is telling me about what's happening, and to
Hmm.
start looking for what's really happening here.
Yeah.
And yeah, the form is entertaining, but reality is beyond anything that we can imagine, which is that's why we reject it. It's like, well, I don't know what that is. I don't, see this God up in the sky, but I do have what I do see. I do have what is really here in front of me, and that's you. And Rafi, hi Rafi. So that's it. Uh, and let's see, Bob's saying, I'm beginning to understand how Jesus healed the sick. He only saw their spirit body, not the frail human form, and thus revealed the truth. Yeah, and exactly, Bob. That's what Joel Goldsmith says. That's a lot of teachings say that is that joining in the holy instant with the reality of what we are,
The
that
innocence. Yeah.
innocence that
Hmm.
causes but
Right.
even the healing of the body that appeared to happen with Jesus in the story in the Bible. I have to make all those qualifications there. Because a lot of I think in a lot of ways, and I have seen this happen myself, when people have had, a sickness, illness, long-term, whatever, and have a change in mind, change in spirit, whatever, they do become well, they do become healed. And it's not because Jesus was there, because, uh, it had to come from inside themselves. It couldn't have come from anything outside of them. So, if they were healed, it was healed because they recognized the truth of what they were. But again, I have to say the idea of healing is quite different to the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Because the Holy Spirit doesn't see bodies. It doesn't see form. It only sees one of two thoughts, love or fear, innocence or guilt. And that's basically why there's no way that the ego can really accept any healing that's a true healing, because that's all that true healing is always of the mind. Because the ego's whole premise is that guilt is real, meaning the separation happened. We pulled off this impossible crime of making separate things and people and stuff. And from that vantage point, we're basically, seem to be stuck in a delusional experience that says, guilt is the only possible choice. We can modify it, shape and color and size and all the different attributes that seem to have, and our minds are really powerful at making up, elaborate stories. I mean, just every one of us has a, a narrative that says, "Oh, I was born. I had all these things." I'm going through these hard drives and looking at all these old photos and recordings of different things and yada yada. And I think, wow, what an elaborate story! But it's stuff I've made up. And there's parts of it that I still apparently value because I'm loading them onto little thumb drives of the files I want to keep. And it's just kind of fun to just look at that, just say, how absurd is it that there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but just the whole process of wanting to make the dream real, and just looking at all the things that we do that reinforce the idea that we're separate, and that's the heart of the issue that the course keeps bring us back to. And Dove put, Jesus saw the face of Christ and all he met and remembered God. Yeah, that's it. I mean, the face of Christ is the innocence. So the Holy Spirit in our mind sees the innocence on everyone we are physically around or think about, and then we remember the oneness that we've never left. That's the whole process. And there's so many ways that the course describes it, isn't there? Yeah.
It is. I mean, you think it's, wow, why does he keep saying this over and over and over? Well, yeah, because I didn't hear it the first time. So
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
I'll hear
The
this.
repetition isn't, as Gary Renard's teachers say, not just a good idea, it's essential. So that's why, going through the course for the umpteenth time and realizing, whoa, when did they add that? Well, that's the wonderful aha-ness, I'm using that
Yes,
word again,
honest.
that the course wants us to have. That it's like, oh yeah, wow, I could see peace instead of the agonizing self-accusation that I experience as an ego, which then I almost immediately, deny and then foist upon the world, and I call it blame and projection and mudslinging. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And just, you know, what is the purpose? And you always just have to ask yourself, what is the purpose? Why am I thinking this, doing this, saying this, hearing this, seeing this? Perception has a focus. Lesson
right.
181, one of my favorite lessons, tells
Yep.
us that perception has a focus. And so this is the thing I can control, is the focus. I can perceive uh, you know, many things, uh, but it's my decision on what I want to call it. It's my decision on what I want to see. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
It's totally our decision. And that perception, like you say, has a focus. I was just thinking that the last line that we read today, which are whopping two paragraphs, which
Woohoo.
this successfully kept the perceived threat at a distance. Well, that's what we made perception to do. Projection makes perception. So the perception, or the false perception anyway, the true perception is forgiveness, but the false perception that the ego uses to keep us safely, in air quotes, around in the outer shield of oblivion, is keep the perceived threat, which is the decision, return to the decision-making part of our mind, um, keep that at a distance by projecting it out onto the world. So we've got the outer shield of oblivion that keeps us from looking at the inner, past into the inner shield, where the ego says, don't go anywhere near that decision-making mind because you'll choose against my entire thought system of sin, guilt, and fear. Never says that because that would be the giveaway of how to undo it. But that's what forgiveness does, is it just says, if I see everyone's innocence, not on the level of form, but on the level of mind, I'm going to see my own innocence, and then I'm going to no longer wish to punish myself. And sometimes that might result in a physical healing, but regardless, it'll be a state of I don't care about the form as much. I'm no longer as obsessed with trying to make the form work, but I'm recognizing that the content of choosing ego or Holy Spirit is vital to my peace, and really the only thing that's essential to that peace. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much, Lynn. I actually don't have another class to go to right now, but I want to honor the people that might be coming on after us. So
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Bruce, and I appreciate it so much too. And
likewise,
I was thinking
thanks to
today
everyone who's
about
been participating. Yeah.
our long, long friendship and
Yeah. Yeah.
how much you mean to me. I'm just
Yeah.
so grateful. So
And likewise. And thanks to Dove, who encouraged me a few decades ago to get on this wonderful forum.
pick up the mic.